A to Z Mysteries, Book Number 22, The Vampire's Vacation, by Ron Roy. Chapter 5. A few minutes later, the kids reached Josh's house. Josh marched around the house to the backyard. His twin brothers, Brian and Bradley, were playing with blocks on the picnic table. Under the table, Josh's dog, Pal, was sound asleep. "Where's Mom?" Josh asked the twins. "I'm out here," came a voice from the vegetable garden. Josh ran toward his mother, yelling, "I need some garlic." Ruth Rose shook her head. "Do you think Josh is serious about this vampire stuff, or is he just fooling around?" she asked Dink. Dink shrugged. "I think he really believes that guy is a vampire," he said. "What do you think?" Ruth Rose asked. "I don't believe in vampires," Dink said. "But what about those Band-Aids?" Dink and Ruth Rose sat at the table with Brian and Bradley. The twins each had a pile of letter blocks and were trying to make words. "What are you spelling?" Dink asked them. "Our names, but we don't know how to spell," Bradley said. "I'll help you," Ruth Rose said. "Do you know what letter your names begin with?" "B," both boys yelled. They each picked out a B block. "That's right," Ruth Rose said. She selected 4 more blocks to spell out B-R-I-A-N. "That spells Brian," she said. She chose some more blocks and spelled B-R-A-D-L-E-Y. Josh came and sat down with them. He had an armload of green stalks with white bulbs on one end. "Ew!" cried Brian. "Smelly!" "Yuck!" yelled Bradley. The 2 boys raced away from the table, holding their noses. "So this is what garlic looks like when it's growing," Dink said, sniffing one of the stalks. Ruth Rose held her nose. "Did you tell your mom why you wanted the garlic, Josh?" Josh grinned slyly. "I didn't tell her about Vampire Man," he said. "I just said I needed garlic for an experiment." Josh started weaving stalks together. "I think I'll pass on the garlic," Dink said. "Okay, but don't try to steal mine when the vampire sneaks up on you," Josh said. "I wish I could remember where I saw him before today," Ruth Rose said. She spelled out Dr. Cula with blocks. "You forgot his first initial," Dink said. He picked up an A block and slid it between the R and C blocks. Suddenly, Josh dropped his garlic stalks. The block spelled D-R-A-C-U-L-A. Dink and Ruth Rose stared at the word. To Dink, it seemed as if everything froze. Pal stopped his snorting. "Now, do you guys believe me?" Josh whispered. "Well, okay," Ruth Rose said after a minute. "The letters in Dr. Cula's name also spell Dracula, but that's just a coincidence." Dink let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "I don't know," he said quietly. "The Band-Aids on Mr. Passkey, Ellie, and Mr. Linkletter could be a coincidence, and anyone could own a black cape. But this..." Dink ran a finger along the 7 blocks that spelled Dracula. "This can't be a coincidence." Ruth Rose sighed. "Okay, I guess I agree that this is all a little spooky," she said. "But I still don't think Dr. Cula is a vampire. I don't believe in vampires, like I don't believe in ghosts." "I don't believe in ghosts either," Dink said. "But I do believe what I see. I think we should go talk to Officer Fallon." "Okay, let's go see if he believes in vampires," Ruth Rose said. "Wait a sec," Josh said. He had finished weaving a loop of garlic stalks. It was too small to slide over his head, so he plopped it on top of his hair, like a crown. "How do I look?" he asked. "Like a smelly salad," commented Dink. Chapter 6. Josh called Pal and clipped the leash to his collar. "Mom, I'm going into town with Dink and Ruth Rose," he called toward the vegetable garden. His mom's face popped up. "Okay, but please don't stay long," she said. "I need you to watch the twins while I dash to the market later." "Are you wearing your garlic to see Officer Fallon?" Ruth Rose asked. Josh grinned. "Oops, I forgot." He laid the garlic crown on the picnic table. He broke off one garlic bulb and stuck it in his shirt pocket. "No vampire dude is getting me," Josh said. The kids cut through the elementary school grounds to reach Main Street. Then they took a right on Oak Street and passed People's Pond on their way to the police station. Pal tugged Josh toward the pond. He took a few laps of pond water, scaring a frog. The frog plopped into the water and disappeared. They found Officer Fallon washing his cruiser behind the police station. He had removed his shoes and socks and rolled up his pant legs. "Hey kids, hey pal," the police chief said. He dropped a sponge into a bucket, walked over to a bench, and sat down. "Have you come to help me wash my car?" The kids sat on the lawn near the bench. Pal crawled under the bench and sighed. "Your cruiser doesn't look very dirty," Ruth Rose observed. Officer Fallon grinned. "It doesn't really need washing," he admitted. "I just wanted to come out here and get my feet wet." He wiggled his toes in the grass. "Say, what's that smell?" Officer Fallon looked under the bench. "Has Pal been rolling in something?" "It's garlic," Josh said. He pulled the bulb out of his pocket. Officer Fallon raised his eyebrows. "What are you trying to do, keep vampires away?" he joked. Dink nudged Josh's leg with his foot. "Tell him, Josh." Josh put the garlic bowl back in his pocket. "We saw this creepy-looking guy in town," he said, then began telling Officer Fallon the story. As he listened to the three kids, Officer Fallon leaned forward with his elbows on his knees. "Let me get this straight," he said. "This man in black went into Ellie's, but didn't come out again, and then you saw a band-aid on Ellie's neck?" "The same thing happened when he went into the book nook," Dink said. "The guy had vanished, and Mr. Paskey had a band-aid on his neck." "We found out he's staying at the Shangri-La," Josh went on. "And guess what? Mr. Linkletter had on a band-aid too. The guy we saw signed into the hotel as Dr. A. Cula," Ruth Rose added. "And that spells Dracula." Officer Fallon's eyebrows shot up. "Well, I'll be darned," he said. "That's why we think he's a vampire," Josh continued. Officer Fallon let one of his hands fall on Pal's head. He rubbed the dog's ears while he thought. "I think I saw the same fellow in town," Officer Fallon said after a minute. "He looked familiar, somehow." "I thought so too," Ruth Rose cried. "I could swear I've seen his face before today." Officer Fallon stood up. He emptied his bucket and began hosing off his car. "Tell you what," he said. "I'll try to find this Dr. Cula and have a talk with him. Will you kids be around?" "I'll be at home," Ruth Rose said. "I promised to help my mom clean up the basement." "I have to babysit the twins," Josh said. He poked Dink. "And Dink is going to help me." "I am?" said Dink. Officer Fallon shut off the hose. "Okay, I'll let you know what I find out about your vampire," he said, winking at the kids. Dink and Josh walked Ruth Rose to her house on Woody Street. Ruth Rose's cat Tiger was lying on her front porch. Pal tugged on his leash and whined. "If you hear anything from Officer Fallon, let me know," Ruth Rose said, picking up her cat. "You too," Josh said. He patted the garlic bulb in his pocket. "Sure you don't want to borrow this?" "No thanks," Ruth Rose said. "Tiger here will protect me." She kissed her cat on the nose and opened her front door. Dink, Josh, and Pal headed up Farm Lane. They were at Josh's house a few minutes later, and Josh let Pal off his leash. The boys walked around to the back of the house and entered the kitchen. "Hi, Mrs. Pinto," Dink said. "Hello, Dink. Thanks for coming right back, Joshua," his mom said, grabbing her car keys. "The boys are waiting for you in the barn. They want to ride on Polly." "Cool," Josh said. He and Dink walked through the garden. Josh pulled up a carrot and wiped the dirt off on his shorts. Inside the barn, Brian and Bradley were brushing Polly the pony. "Yay, you're here," Brian yelled. "I want to ride Polly first." "No, me first," cried Bradley. "I'm a minute older than you." Josh fed Polly the carrot and rubbed her velvety nose. "You can both ride at the same time," he said. "But I get to ride in front," Brian said. "No, I'm oldest," said Bradley. "I get to ride in front." Josh looked at Dink. "Help me," he begged.